We have visual editing and page building with George. So visual editing is like the live preview for your work. So we're really excited, George, for you to demo this off and what new things you have cooking with visual editing.
And yeah, and like visual editing has been out for a while.
Yeah.
We made it as easy as it can be because it's a very complicated problem with the constraints we are designing this for. But like you could load your front end into the studio, the presentation tool, get these overlays that you can click to get to the right place in the studio. And then we did some new stuff, and you're gonna share that with us, George, and talk a little bit about like the mechanics behind the scenes because they are super cool. Looking forward to this. Take
Yes.
it away. Let's see.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for the for the introduction. Yeah, so we have some new features in presentation. I'm going to be focused quite a lot on drag and drop today because that's something that I've been looking at quite a lot. I'm not sure if anyone has seen this yet, but what we have now is for array children that are rendering within presentation, you can now grab them and move them around visually. I think this is something that is probably going to be really handy for a lot of teams, like having worked on page building experiences that are centered around structured content in the past. I know it can be like quite intimidating for content editors to kind of come in here and drag things around and not be sure like what's going to happen when they do it. And I think the more kind of affordances we can add to this view and that make things like very immediately tactile is like can only be a really good thing. This is actually my super ugly kind of sandbox test environment. I would probably suggest watching the marketing video if you'd like to see it looking a little bit more pretty. But hey, this is like demos, right? So figured that would be fine. So I mean, I'll stay focused on drag and drop for a moment. I think something that's really interesting about our implementation of drag and drop is that it's not your usual drag and drop. It in the sense that it actually doesn't, as part of its core mechanics, it does not touch your markup or your code at all. It operates completely separately. So you don't need to add a library. You don't need to change how you render. You don't have to entangle your your like code base with us if you don't want to. And the way that it does that is it makes use of overlays. If you've used presentation in the past, you will be familiar with overlays as the little blue boxes that show up that I was just kind of showing as you kind of move through the presentation view. And overlays really are just like a skeleton representation of your app. We have a look through, we kind of find content that maps to Sanity fields, and we create overlays for those elements. And as those elements change size, resize, whatever, the overlays kind of automatically update. I actually made a really ugly code pen that I won't share in the chat, but hopefully someone can, that kind of shows essentially how overlays work behind the scenes. It's a resize observer that looks at the content on the page. In real life, there's also a mutation observer, and it just watches all your elements and creates these overlays that map to those. Anyway, those rectangles exist in their own part of your application, are actually mounted outside of the body now, and they are not kind of attached at all. So when we were looking at creating our drag and drop experience, all we really had to work with was rectangles and some data and a mouse position. That's it. Like that is all we have to work with. So we're looking really just at geometry, which is kind of fun and an interesting challenge. So how did we do it? Well, we knew from the start we wanted to have this kind of drag and drop experience where instead of like, if I kind of was to draw it, instead of having two rectangles where I like drag this one here and then they swap position, we wanted to do something that was more like, oh, I'm dragging this one between like these two, and I want to show a little marker like where it can be inserted. I think that feels a bit more like a tool and less like a kind of fun drag and drop thing. So as you can kind of see here, I'll just remind, this is like a vertical flow and this is a horizontal flow. So we knew this is what we wanted to do. I'm moving something. There are some rectangles. I need to calculate the position in which I want to drop this thing. And when I do that, I want Sanity to update the data and for that to kind of trickle through and for my front end to render it as normal. So that's kind of tricky, and it took a while to work out how best to do it. But what we kind of landed on was really leaning into the platform and leaning into the browser. And I think when you're working on something, particularly on the front end, that is quite hard or challenging, like just looking to how the browser does it is usually a pretty safe bet for how to go forward. I mean, we touched on how amazing CSS is nowadays earlier, and I mean, it's just always just such a great reference if you get stuck for anything. But anyway, the way that we kind of do it, if we have a group of rectangles, we kind of look at them and say, hey, do any of these rectangles share a y-axis? And if they do, we sort of infer that those groups are an inline flow, which in like a left to right language means they're running left to right and wrapping. And if they don't, we kind of assume it's a block flow. So here's some rectangles that share a y-axis. Cool, that is a horizontal flow. Here are some that do not. That's a vertical flow. And here is a complex layout with different grid columns, which is still really just a horizontal flow, because if you think about it, even in a CSS grid layout with different columns, unless you're explicitly defining areas, things are just going this way and wrapping. So the cool thing about that is we have the rectangles, we know what the flow is, and now we just need to work out, hey, if I'm dragging this thing, what am I kind of between? And the way that we decided to solve that is kind of borrowed from, I guess, like you do it in game dev sometimes and things like that in graphics programming, and that is like raycasting. And it's quite a cheap implementation of raycasting, if I'm honest, but I'm calling it raycasting nonetheless. And I think we also I have created a demo as well to sort of show how raycasting works. So if I trigger this here, as I move my mouse, you can see that like lines are cast around the DOM. These are technically overlays in this demo. They're kind of like abstract representations of actual DOM content on the page. And if you look in the code pen, you can see like if you change the CSS, this raycaster will kind of react to those changes. And you could maybe even use this to create something else. I don't know, maybe you could use it to predict which link is next in a piece of navigation, because you kind of get a line of sight to things or something. I don't know, but feel free to use it if you want to. But yeah, anyway, like as you kind of move the mouse around, we're kind of casting out in different directions to work out, okay, if this is an inline flow group, what am I between on this axis? And if this is like a block or vertical flow group, this is what I'm between on this axis. And that is, I'm going very fast, but that is essentially how we did it. And that is how you can do drag and drop without touching any of the DOM. And I'll give like a quick demo. This is actually a really slow environment, but as I kind of move things around, just ignore the error. It knows that I'm doing a demo. You can see that things just move around. This is using optimistic updates, which I probably aren't very well placed to talk about, but it's a really cool new feature that we have that lets us kind of optimistically update sort of data within presentation and then let it kind of trickle through and come back in the usual route, but it kind of lets us do things like this much quicker. So yeah, that's kind of how it works. There's something else quite fun with drag and drop. I don't know if anyone has ever used another page builder in the past where you drag something and you have to drag it quite far, and you end up doing that thing where you hold it at the bottom of the viewport and it kind of goes really slowly and then it goes really fast and then you can't remember where you were going to put it and you get very stressed and you close it and you probably just do it somewhere else. We really didn't want to do that. So the way that we kind of went about it is, if I'm dragging a group, which is quite cool, I can actually hold shift and that whole group is immediately kind of centered within my viewport. I can do that again. This is quite a large group. Hey, I don't know where I want this to go. If I hit shift, that will be immediately centered and scaled within the viewport. And then I can drag around here, do what I need to do, and then kind of drop back in. And I thought that was kind of a fun feature too. Like that is the one, actually, that's kind of the one time when we do manipulate the DOM a little bit as part of this feature, because the whole parent gets kind of scaled to make sure this fits in the viewport. But yeah, that's drag and drop. The other thing that I wanted to touch on was like custom overlays. This is like a new thing that we have where, in addition to our simple boxes with titles, you can now actually define your own custom components that render within the overlays. So this is a really simple one I've made that will let you resize an image. And it's like, they're really fun and easy to define. Shout out to Rupert for the work on that. But it's like a new thing that you can also do.
I love how casual you just, oh, by the way, there's like custom controls in presentation now. Yeah, we haven't talked a lot about this yet, and I'm actually just finishing up the docs for this feature. But this is super cool. What can you do with controls? Did you show us the controls, by the way?
Yeah,
For
like
built-in ones?
oh yeah, of course. There's also built-in ones. I'm not sure how well they'll work. This is actually a
That's
very
fine.
old branch that I have because it has this resize custom overlay in it. But what you can also do now is you can right-click on an overlay, and if that overlay is just like a simple array child like this, we get some options to move it up and down, insert before, duplicate, all of that. But if it is like part of an array that you might have in like a page building example, like which is really common for a marketing site or whatever, where you have like a hero or product section or whatever, if you right click here, you should actually see like you can choose from, I think again, this is kind of an older branch, but you can choose from like an array of all of the things that you can have in that array. And so you don't even have to use your, you don't have to even jump over here at all, which is really cool.
George, this is a game changer. Like this is like that something that developers and content editors have been asking for forever, and it's here. This is like so cool. Can people start using it now?
Yes, people can start using this now. Yeah, it's there. It's in production, and you can start using it. I've already seen people in the community Slack start to implement drag and drop in different places, and it's really cool to see it. And also people using all the different other features is, yeah, it's really cool. But it's there. You can use it.
And it's like, obviously, like you mentioned, like page building is an obvious use case for this. But what I also like is like, it's not only page building, it's like any type of like layout thing. Basically, wherever you have a list, you might want this. And I guess that's important to say, like this works for array type of content, right?
Yes. That could be like any kind of array you can do this with.
And like I'm like really impressed about how small the implementation footprint is. Yes, we have to kind of like you have to do the data attribute thing, because like it's very hard to make it simpler than that. But I must admit I got a little bit nervous when I saw the use optimistic hook, but I was like, oh, another thing. But then writing the docs is like, oh, it's not that hard. It's like it just sits between the data that comes in the component and like the array mapping kind of thing. It's great to talk about code without showing the code, but yeah, so fair not.
I don't know whether I have it as a reference for you. I'm a little bit late now. I don't have it. Sorry.
It's fine. It's in the docs, and I guess like the only thing that might trip you up when you first look at the use optimistic hook is like the reducer function. Reducer function this is state management, so you have to kind of deal with it. But we have great kind of like boilerplate code. You can just copy paste and figure it out, and let us know if you're stuck. But yeah, but like, man, this I'm getting my mind blown, and I've seen this before. Great work.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, we have more stuff. Thank you so much, George.
Thank you, George.
Thanks.